Do you remember this logo or this UI? If you do, you're probably around for some time in the Counter-Strike scene. This is OpSkins. Well, it was OpSkins, Counter-Strike's biggest external marketplace, much older than Skin Baron, DMarket, and all those sites you know and use today. But what exactly happened to OpSkins? Well, this is a story about greed, insanity, and gambling. But let's take a step back. Actually, quite a large one, back to 2015. At this time, we already got trading cards at Steam and skins at Counter-Strike, Dota, and so on. Valve started building up its item economy and the market around it in 2013. But until this point, most people used forums and Steam groups to find people who wanted to trade their items. Another site which was pretty popular back then was CSGO Lounge. Basically, Craigslist for skins, and also an esports skin betting site, but that's another story. So skin trading got three big problems back then. Basically, everything worked manually. No trading bots, no marketplace with big inventories. Cashing out skins was pretty hard, at least without getting scammed. And because players trade mostly directly with each other, you couldn't compensate price differences. So people over or underpaid most of the time, and keys, which were still tradable and marketable back then, were used as an additional stable currency to level out those differences in a trade. So in January 2015, two Canadian folks in their 20s called Artur Minikoff and John Brakiski launched an online skins marketplace under the domain of opskins.com. They took a 10% fee on sales, so less than Steam itself, secured players' trades utilizing an automated system of bot accounts, and gave people the option to cash out the proceeds. A good deal for the player, a good deal for OpSkins, and somehow also a good deal for Valve, because it made skin trading and the whole CS ecosystem generally more attractive. Just 2 months after the launch of the site, they handled nearly 2,000 sales daily. In June 2015, even Vice wrote an article about them. At this point, they already handled a daily transaction volume of $120,000. The article also mentions that Valve suspended their accounts at some point, maybe because all those high-volume trading looked suspicious to their systems, but John decided that they had talks with Valve, they investigated their business, and brought back their accounts, saying they were good to go. And oh boy, business went very well. They introduced premium subscriptions, bringing lower fees to customers. They got hundreds and thousands of new users per day, handled millions of dollars in transaction volume daily, and made loads and loads of cash. Basically, they profited from two things: the growing player base, pushing the skins economy, and gambling. Yeah, that was the time of the first wave of those big unregulated CSGO casino sites. Some of them were pure rigged scam sites, some of them were secretly run by YouTubers and streamers, or esport teams. But anyways, those sites needed skins to fill up their own market for players to withdraw their profits, or at least what was left from their deposits. And they needed many skins. So many that they couldn't really handle that themselves, and they also needed an option to cash out the skins that players gambled away. And here comes OpSkins into play. And also other marketplaces, to be fair, but as the biggest one, they obviously played a special role. So users purchased skins, deposited them on those gambling sites, and either lost, so the site could sell those skins for cash, or they won, withdrawing an item the site likely bought at a marketplace like OpSkins in the background. Either way, OpSkins profited from the selling fees. It is also well documented that OpSkins was in lively contact with some of those casino sites, so they were very aware of the fact where big parts of their revenue came from, and even provided API services to make the implementation of OpSkins marketplace easier for those gambling sites. In mid-2017, Minikoff, one of the founders, sold his shares in the company to two guys that recently joined the operation: William Quigley, who became the new CEO, and Jonathan Yantis, who became COO of OpSkins. And as far as we know, they intensified OpSkins' involvement with gambling. At the end of March in 2018, Valve introduced the 7-day trade cooldown we all know today. Back then they said it is to reduce negative unintended uses of trading, such as fraud and scams, but we know that they obviously also meant gambling. And this was indeed a problem. Skins couldn't be moved that fast and traded so often anymore, reducing OpSkins' earnings. For example, the owner of Skin Baron once said that they lost about 75% of their earnings back then. But the new restriction also made life for gambling sites kinda harsh, because paying out the users just became harder, and you also couldn't buy a skin and deposit it to a casino right away anymore. what could you do to bring things back to normal if you can't move items from one account to another within those 7 days? And OpSkins just thought, hey, we already got those items on our bots once they are deposited, so we don't care if we have to display them to one or another user on our side. And OpSkins Express Trade was born. So they basically created their own trading system, and of course without trade cooldowns, using all the items on their bots, so you could deposit your item, trade it indefinitely with other users, and the new owner can withdraw it as soon as the initial deposit is 7 days ago, no matter when the last express trade happened. Well, and of course they thought about their casino friends and created an API for that. So not only them, but also all those gambling sites could circumvent Valve's restrictions. All this led to this legendary cease and desist letter Valve sent to OpSkins via Twitter DM, letting them know that they violated Steam's terms of services and will lock all OpSkins accounts in about 10 days on 21st of June in 2018. So Valve would have had any right to take them out of business right away, but keeping all those players and their skins in mind, they allowed some days so people could withdraw anything left on the site. In the end, there were still millions of dollars in skins left on those bots, which are now locked forever. OpSkins could have just publicly excused at that point that they did wrong, but instead they went full ham crazy, saying Valve would try to force people to the community market, while OpSkins was the only marketplace which was sued. They even continued doing business, somehow. You could still express trade CSGO items, even though you couldn't withdraw them because they were locked on OpSkins bots. The company said they want to concentrate on new item economies in the crypto scene, and they also brought up their own, VGO. So officially it was just the partner, but we all know that it was way more than that. But that's maybe something for another video. So all this VGO stuff died relatively quickly because those items were basically one of the first NFTs, but without any use. You couldn't use the guns in Counter-Strike or any other game, so you had just the picture. And there also wasn't a real supply and demand or a free market for VGO skins. It was more like a centrally planned economy to keep up the prices. OpSkins tried one last comeback using peer-to-peer trading, just like Buff, but no one trusted them anymore. So they did what they should have done back in 2018. They shut down the site and the company. Thinking about where CSGO is today, how much skin prices have increased since 2018, and how the gambling scene made a comeback, OpSkins could really have made a fortune if they didn't got too greedy back then. I mean, they could still be the #1 player in the scene, at least for the Western market, but they just threw it all away. A multi-million-dollar business just went down the drain because of greed, because of the insanity to believe that they didn't need Valve and can just make their own skin economy, and because they desperately wanted to comfort those unregulated skin casinos. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time.